There's a silence that comes just before violence, a silence that has nothing to do with peace. It is the feeling of the air tightening, of every instinct whispering that something is about to break. Most people never notice it. To them, a room simply grows quiet for a moment. But to someone who has spent years surviving danger, that silence is as loud as a warning siren. The 11:40 p.m. crosstown bus rolled through the rain-soaked streets like a lonely ship drifting across a dark sea. Heavy rain hammered the windows, turning the city's bright neon signs into blurred streaks of red, blue, and white. Every passing traffic light dissolved into watery reflections that slid across the glass before disappearing into the night. Inside, the aging fluorescent lights flickered with a dull hum that made the bus feel even more tired than its passengers. The air smelled of damp jackets, diesel fumes, and the lingering exhaustion of people who had worked too many hours for too little reward. Every bump in the road rattled the loose panels overhead, creating a steady rhythm that blended with the rain outside. Tristan occupied the rear corner seat, where he could see every passenger, every window, and both exits without moving his head. His broad shoulders were wrapped inside an oversized canvas jacket, faded by years of use. The coat concealed the powerful frame underneath, making him appear older, smaller, and more worn down than he truly was. His hair, cropped close to his scalp, had turned more gray than black. Rough stubble shadowed a square jaw that looked as though it had survived more than one hard fight. His pale gray eyes remained fixed on the front of the bus, calm but constantly alert. Pressed against his left leg sat Duke. The German Shepherd was nothing like the polished dogs shown in advertisements or competitions. Duke was lean and battle-scarred. His dark sable coat blended almost perfectly with the dirty bus floor, while a long hairless scar stretched from behind his right ear down toward his neck, a permanent reminder of an explosion neither he nor Tristan had ever truly escaped. Duke sat perfectly still. He ignored the discarded wrappers beneath the seats. He ignored the rain. He ignored every distraction that would have caught the attention of an ordinary dog. His amber eyes quietly monitored every movement inside the bus with disciplined precision. Tristan rested a calloused hand on Duke's collar. 2 gentle taps. A pause. Without looking away, Duke's left ear flicked backward for a split second, acknowledging the silent command before returning its focus forward. No words were necessary. Years of working together had replaced conversation with instinct. They breathed in perfect rhythm. Inhale, exhale. They had once ridden military helicopters into places few people would ever know existed. They had searched bomb villages, tracked dangerous men through mountains, and survived missions that rarely appeared in history books. Now they shared a modest apartment, a monthly disability payment, and a quiet routine neither of them completely trusted. Retirement had changed their address. It had not changed their wiring. Tristan still counted exits wherever he entered a room. He still noticed hands before faces. He still measured distances without thinking. The habits had become permanent. Only 4 other passengers occupied the nearly empty bus. Near the middle sat a young nurse wearing pale green scrubs. Exhaustion had finally overtaken her, and she slept with her head resting against the vibrating window, one hand loosely wrapped around her purse. Across from her, a teenage boy disappeared beneath oversized headphones, pretending loud music could erase the world around him. A few rows ahead sat a middle-aged fast food employee in a grease-stained uniform. His shoulders slumped forward as he stared silently at the floor, too drained to look anywhere else. The bus driver kept both hands on the wheel, guiding the vehicle carefully through the sheets of rain. It was a fragile collection of strangers, connected only by the hope of making it home. Then the bus stopped at 4th and Pike. The pneumatic doors hissed open. Cold rain rushed inside, followed immediately by 3 young men whose energy shattered the fragile calm. They entered loudly, not with the cheerful excitement of friends ending a good evening, but with the aggressive confidence of people searching for someone weaker than themselves. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The smell of cheap beer mixed with strong cologne drifted down the aisle. Leading them was a thick-necked man with a fresh buzz cut wearing an expensive puffer jacket. He slammed his transit card against the fare scanner, so hard the plastic cracked against the machine. The driver frowned. "Move toward the back," he said wearily. The young man barely looked at him. "Relax, old man," he sneered. "I'm paying your salary." His two companions laughed as they followed him down the aisle. From the rear seat, Tristan watched without changing expression. His pulse remained slow. Instead of fear, an icy calm settled over him. His mind immediately began sorting details. 3 subjects: intoxicated, overconfident, poor awareness, no discipline, potentially dangerous. The trio ignored dozens of empty seats near the front. They wanted attention, not transportation. As they moved deeper into the bus, the tallest of the 3 deliberately bumped the sleeping nurse's shoulder. She jerked awake with a frightened gasp, clutching her purse tightly against her chest. The young man grinned. "My bad, sweetheart," he mocked, making no effort to hide that the collision had been intentional. The teenager turned his music up louder. The fast food worker lowered his eyes even farther. The driver remained silent. No one wanted to become the next target. That was the unspoken rule of the city. Look away. Stay quiet. Hope the trouble chooses someone else. Tristan never looked away. He simply watched. The 3 young men sprawled across the seats, halfway down the aisle, as though they owned the bus. They laughed too loudly, cursed at every sentence, and filled the quiet cabin with the kind of noise meant to make everyone else feel smaller. Their voices bounced off the metal walls while the bus rolled through rain-slick streets beneath flickering traffic lights. For several long minutes, Tristan remained motionless. His eyes stayed half-closed, his breathing slow and measured. He wanted nothing more than to get home. Home meant feeding Duke his evening meal, locking the apartment door behind them, and trying to sleep without waking in the middle of the night reaching for a rifle that had been gone for years. Normal life was still something he practiced, rather than possessed. But trouble was like a starving predator. Eventually, it always grew tired of peaceful prey. Tommy shifted restlessly in his seat, before standing as the bus swayed through a turn. One hand grabbed the overhead rail, while his eyes wandered lazily through the nearly empty cabin. He searched for entertainment. His gaze drifted over empty seats, past the exhausted passengers. Then it settled on the shadowed corner at the back. More precisely, it landed on Duke. A slow grin twisted across Tommy's face. He elbowed the heavy-set friend beside him. "Yo," he snickered. "Check out G. Joe back there with the mutt." Tristan released a slow breath through his nose. "Ignore it. They're drunk. They're looking for attention. Just let it pass." He shifted one boot slightly against the floor. Duke felt the tiny movement immediately. The German shepherd's muscles tightened beneath his scarred coat, but he never made a sound. His ears stayed forward, his posture perfect, waiting only for the command that mattered. Nothing else existed. "Hey," Tommy shouted down the aisle. No response. "Old man, you deaf?" Tristan continued staring at the seat ahead of him. He neither flinched nor acknowledged the insult. To everyone else on the bus, he looked like another weary passenger, pretending the bully didn't exist. Duke knew better. The dog could hear the precise rhythm of Tristan's breathing. He could smell the faint chemical change in his handler's body as adrenaline entered the bloodstream under perfect control. This wasn't fear. It was preparation. "I'm talking to you, Grandpa." Tommy sneered as he walked farther down the aisle. His 2 friends rose immediately, encouraged by their leader's confidence. The dynamic shifted. One aggressor had become 3. Near the front of the bus, the nurse quietly stood and pressed the stop request button. She didn't argue. She didn't intervene. As soon as the doors opened at the next corner, she hurried into the rain without looking back. The teenage passenger lowered his hood over his face and turned his music even louder. The fast food worker stared at his shoes as though they were suddenly fascinating. No one wanted to become involved. Everyone hoped silence would protect them. It rarely did. "Bus says no pets," the tall one called out, tossing a crumpled gum wrapper. The paper floated through the aisle before landing softly against Tristan's boot. The heavy-set man laughed. Tommy took another slow step. Now barely 10 feet separated them. "Unless that's a seeing-eye dog," he mocked. "You blind or something? Is that why you're wearing those ugly boots?" For the first time since they boarded, Tristan moved. He slowly raised his head. His pale gray eyes met Tommy's. There was no anger, no irritation, no fear, only an expressionless stare so calm it was almost unsettling, as though Tommy were nothing more than another obstacle that happened to be standing in the wrong place. "He is a service animal," Tristan said quietly. His deep voice barely rose above the rumble of the engine, yet every word carried with unmistakable authority. "And we're going home." A brief pause followed. "Leave it alone." Tommy burst into laughter and glanced over his shoulder at his friends. "You hear that?" he mocked. "This old guy thinks he's giving orders." Still grinning, Tommy closed the remaining distance until he stood directly beside Tristan's seat. The smell of stale beer and cheap liquor rolled off him in waves. His pupils were wide. His movements were reckless. He looked down at Duke with open contempt. The German shepherd never growled, never barked. He simply lifted his amber eyes to meet Tommy's gaze and waited. Most dogs, when confronted by an aggressive stranger leaning over their owner, would bark, growl, or snap. Duke did none of those things. He simply looked up. His amber eyes settled on Tommy with quiet, unwavering focus. His ears stayed forward, his breathing remained steady, and his body never shifted an inch. His lips were relaxed, but there was an unmistakable alertness in the way he watched every movement. It wasn't the nervous stare of a frightened pet. It was the disciplined attention of an animal that had spent years working beside someone who understood danger. "Ugly mutt," Tommy sneered. "Looks like somebody tried sanding off one of his ears." His friends laughed. Tommy bent slightly and reached toward Duke, not to pet him, but to shove him aside, more interested in humiliating Tristan than touching the dog. Before his hand could get close, another hand intercepted it. Tristan moved with startling speed. One moment his hands rested calmly in his lap. The next, his scarred left hand had wrapped firmly around Tommy's wrist. The sharp clap echoed through the quiet bus. Tommy froze. He tugged instinctively, expecting the older man to let go. Nothing happened. Tristan's grip was calm, controlled, and impossibly steady. There was no anger in his face, no raised voice, no dramatic display, just quiet certainty. "I said," Tristan murmured, his deep voice barely louder than the rumble of the engine. "Leave him alone." For the first time that night, Tommy's confidence wavered. He looked into Tristan's pale gray eyes and found no fear there. Only experience, only patience, only the unsettling composure of someone who had already decided exactly what he would do if things became worse. Then Tommy glanced at Duke. The German shepherd hadn't barked, hadn't growled, hadn't moved toward him. The dog simply watched. Something about that stillness was far more unsettling than aggression. For a brief moment, Tommy felt uncertainty creep into his mind. But embarrassment is a powerful force. His friends were watching. Backing down was no longer an option. "Let go of me," Tommy barked. He jerked his arm again. Tristan released his wrist immediately. The sudden freedom caused Tommy to stumble backward half a step before catching his balance. His cheeks flushed red. "You think you're tough?" he shouted, trying to recover his pride. The bus driver looked anxiously into the overhead mirror. "That's enough," he called. "Everybody settle down. Police have been notified." No one answered. The atmosphere inside the bus had changed completely. The teenager in the back pulled off one earbud, finally realizing the situation was serious. The exhausted fast food worker slowly lifted his head from the floor. Every passenger seemed to be holding the same breath. Tristan remained seated. He didn't rise. He didn't posture. He simply adjusted the sleeve of his jacket as though nothing unusual had happened. Then he spoke a single word. "Duke." The German shepherd rose smoothly to his feet. He stepped into the aisle with quiet precision and stood beside Tristan's seat, placing himself between his handler and the three young men. His posture remained controlled. His eyes never left Tommy. The silence surrounding the dog seemed louder than any bark could have been. Tommy rubbed his wrist, still trying to mask the brief hesitation that had crossed his face. His friends drifted closer, encouraged more by pride than confidence. The bus, moments earlier filled only with tired strangers trying to get home, now felt impossibly small. Rain continued to drum against the windows. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Everyone sensed that one careless decision could turn an ugly argument into something far more serious. Tristan's expression never changed. He looked at the three young men the same way he'd looked at every potential threat throughout a lifetime spent in dangerous places. Not with hatred, not with fear, but with calm attention. If there was still a chance for everyone to walk away safely, he intended to give them that chance. Whether they accepted it was no longer entirely up to him. Tristan's eyes drifted to the metal flashlight, then to Tommy's trembling hands. A slow, weary sigh escaped him, carrying the weight of decades he wished he could forget. He had faced armed militants in remote mountain valleys, walked through hostile compounds where every doorway concealed uncertainty, and survived nights that still visited him in restless dreams. Compared to those memories, these three young men were reckless amateurs. Even so, recklessness could be deadly. A knife in a crowded bus left little room for mistakes. "This is your last chance," Tristan said quietly. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried through the bus with unmistakable authority. He reached down and unclipped Duke's leash. The small metal clasp snapped open with a sharp click that echoed through the tense silence. The empty leash slipped onto the seat beside him. "You can step off at the next stop," Tristan said evenly. Then he stood. The oversized jacket settled against his sides, revealing the broad shoulders and powerful build it had concealed. He seemed taller than anyone had realized, filling the narrow aisle with calm, immovable confidence rather than aggression. His pale gray eyes never left Tommy. "Or," he continued, "you can discover why he doesn't need the leash." Beside him, Duke shifted forward a single measured step. Nothing more. No barking. No lunging. Just complete focus. The bus rolled through another intersection, passing beneath alternating pools of orange streetlight that flashed across the tense tableau. The frightened passengers, the young men gripping improvised weapons, the silent German shepherd, and the older man standing perfectly still behind him. For several long seconds, nobody moved. The heavy-set teenager tightened his grip on the folding knife. Sweat beaded across his forehead despite the cool night air leaking through the bus doors. His confidence had begun to crack. He looked from the knife to Tristan, then to Duke. He had expected fear. He had expected pleading. Instead, he found neither. Tristan simply watched. Not the weapon. The young man's posture. His balance. His breathing. The tiny signs that revealed what he might do next. "Do something," Tommy shouted, his voice noticeably less steady than before. The command sounded forced, almost desperate. The heavy-set boy hesitated for only a heartbeat before rushing forward in a burst of panic and misplaced bravado. Everything happened at once. Tristan moved with economical precision, avoiding the incoming swing by the smallest possible margin. There was no dramatic flourish, no wasted motion, only controlled efficiency born from years of experience. Within moments, the attack had ended before it could truly begin. The knife skidded harmlessly across the rubber floor of the bus, spinning beneath a nearby seat. Its owner stumbled backward, stunned more by surprise than anything else, and collapsed onto an empty row, too shaken to continue. Silence crashed over the bus. The remaining attacker froze. His flashlight remained raised, but uncertainty now outweighed confidence. His eyes darted from his fallen friend to Tristan. Nothing about the older man had changed. His breathing remained steady. His expression remained calm. That composure proved far more unsettling than any shout could have been. For an instant, it seemed as though reason might finally prevail. Then panic took over. The second young man rushed forward, swinging the flashlight wildly. Tristan barely turned his head. Instead, he gave a single quiet command. "Fast." Duke reacted instantly. The German shepherd launched forward with disciplined speed, moving exactly as he had been trained countless times before. His objective was not chaos, but control. The sudden intervention forced the attacker off balance before he could complete his swing. The flashlight slipped from his grasp, clattering loudly against the floor as he stumbled backward in shock. The entire bus seemed frozen. The driver gripped the steering wheel. The teenage passenger stared wide-eyed from the rear seat. The exhausted fast food worker finally looked up, Rain continued drumming against the windows, while fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. For the first time since boarding, Tommy understood that the older man standing before him was not looking for a fight. He had spent every moment trying to avoid one, and that realization frightened him more than anything else that had happened that night. Duke reacted the instant Tristan gave the command. The German shepherd surged forward with disciplined precision, intercepting the attacker before the raised flashlight could complete its swing. The impact knocked the young man off balance, and both of them tumbled to the rubber floor of the bus. The flashlight spun from his grasp, clattering beneath the seats. The teenager cried out in panic. Duke immediately settled into a controlled hold, pinning him firmly without unnecessary aggression. Every movement reflected years of rigorous training. There was no frantic barking, no chaotic struggle. The dog simply maintained control, preventing the young man from reaching for the dropped weapon or getting back to his feet. The attacker struggled for a moment before realizing resistance accomplished nothing. Within seconds, he stopped fighting. Only one person remained standing. Tommy. The swagger that had carried him onto the bus had disappeared completely. His face had turned pale, and his wide eyes darted between his fallen friends, the disciplined working dog, and the older man, who hadn't raised his voice once during the entire confrontation. For the first time that evening, Tommy looked frightened. His hand drifted instinctively toward his waistband. The motion was small, almost automatic, but Tristan noticed it immediately. Years of experience had taught him never to ignore movements like that. His pulse quickened for the first time all night, not from panic, but from a sudden realization that the situation could become even more dangerous if anyone made another reckless decision. He stepped forward with calm determination. Before Tommy could complete the movement, Tristan redirected him with a controlled shove that sent the younger man stumbling backward. The surprise was enough to break his balance completely. Tommy hit one knee, then both. The fight left him as quickly as the air in his lungs. He stayed where he was, coughing and struggling to collect himself. Just like that, the confrontation ended. Silence settled over the bus once again. Only the rhythmic sweep of the windshield wipers interrupted the stillness. Rain continued striking the windows in steady waves, while the engine hummed beneath the floor. The teenager pinned beneath Duke breathed heavily, but no longer resisted. Tommy remained on his knees, staring at the floor. The third young man sat slumped against a seat, too stunned to move. No one spoke. Tristan stood quietly in the aisle. His shoulders rose and fell with measured breaths. Only now, with the danger fading, did he notice the familiar tremor beginning in his hands. It wasn't excitement. It wasn't triumph. It was the familiar crash that always followed intense moments of stress. His joints ached. Old injuries complained with every heartbeat. Years of carrying heavy packs, gripping equipment, and enduring countless deployments had left their permanent mark. He closed his eyes briefly. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. The breathing exercise steadied him, slowing the rush of adrenaline enough that the trembling gradually eased. He hated moments like this. There was no satisfaction in them. No victory. Only exhaustion. He had spent years trying to leave violence behind, building a quiet life where nights ended with feeding Duke, locking the apartment door, and hoping for uninterrupted sleep. Instead, the past always seemed to find him, even here, on an ordinary city bus. With a quiet sigh, Tristan crouched carefully, his knees protesting the movement. He spotted the folding knife lying on the floor several feet away. After confirming no one was reaching for it, he picked it up by the handle, folded the blade closed, and slipped it safely into his jacket pocket, where it could no longer endanger anyone. Only then did he turn toward Duke. The young man beneath the dog had stopped struggling entirely. His breathing was uneven, his eyes fixed on the ceiling. Duke remained perfectly still. Every muscle was ready. Every ounce of attention remained focused on Tristan. The frightened teenager no longer mattered. Neither did Tommy. The dog waited only for the next instruction from the person he trusted above all else. Tristan's expression softened for the first time that night. The hardness disappeared from his face, replaced by quiet reassurance. "Duke," he said gently. The command carried none of the sharp authority from moments earlier. It was calm, warm, almost affectionate. Immediately, Duke relaxed. The tension left his posture. He released the hold, stepped back without hesitation, and returned to Tristan's side. He sat neatly beside his handler, looking up for confirmation. Tristan rested a weathered hand on the dog's neck. "Good boy," he whispered. Only then did the passengers finally exhale, realizing the danger had truly passed. "Out!" The command was calm, almost gentle. Duke obeyed instantly, without hesitation. The German Shepherd released his hold and stepped backward in one smooth motion. He gave a single shake of his head before calmly trotting back to Tristan's side. Within a heartbeat, the fierce working dog had transformed once again into the composed service animal every passenger had first seen when boarding the bus. He sat neatly in perfect heel position. His breathing was steady. His eyes never wandered from Tristan. The chaos surrounding them seemed irrelevant. Duke waited only for his next instruction. Tristan bent down and clipped the brass leash back onto the dog's collar. The familiar click echoed softly through the silent bus. 2 gentle taps against the nylon collar. "Good boy." Duke's tail gave the faintest sweep across the floor. Only then did another voice finally break the silence. "Hey, you can't just do that." The bus driver's words crackled through the aging intercom system. The bus remained stopped in the middle of the rain-soaked street. The engine idled steadily, while the air brakes hissed beneath the chassis. Outside, flashing hazard lights reflected across the wet pavement in long ribbons of yellow. "I hit the panic alarm," the driver shouted nervously. "Police are on the way. Nobody move." Tristan didn't answer. He simply looked toward Tommy. The young man's bravado had vanished. He sat slumped on the floor, breathing unevenly, staring at Tristan with the wide-eyed disbelief of someone whose understanding of the world had just been shattered. The swagger was gone. The insults were gone. Even the anger had disappeared. Only fear remained. Tristan studied him for a quiet moment before speaking. "Next time you see someone sitting quietly, trying to get home," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "leave them alone." There was no triumph in his words, only exhaustion. He reached overhead and pulled the yellow stop request cord. The cheerful electronic chime echoed through the bus. It sounded strangely ordinary after everything that had happened. The contrast felt almost surreal. "Open the rear door," Tristan said. Again, he never raised his voice. The driver looked into the mirror. He saw the older man standing calmly beside his leashed German Shepherd, surrounded by frightened young men who no longer wanted any part of the confrontation. Without another word, the driver pressed the release switch. The pneumatic doors folded open with a familiar hiss. Cold rain swept inside. As Tristan stepped toward the exit, movement near the back of the bus caught his attention. The teenage passenger had finally lowered his headphones. He no longer hid beneath his hood. His eyes remained fixed on Tristan, filled with equal parts fear, confusion, and amazement. The events of the last few minutes had dismantled every action movie fantasy he had ever believed. Real danger hadn't looked dramatic. It hadn't come with slow-motion heroics or clever one-liners. It had been frighteningly fast, frighteningly quiet, and over almost before anyone realized it had begun. Tristan paused at the top step. For 2 silent seconds, the older man met the teenager's gaze. Then he gave one slow nod, a simple gesture. "You're safe now." The teenager swallowed hard before returning the nod with shaking determination. Nothing else needed to be said. Tristan stepped into the rain. The cold air struck his face immediately, washing away the stale smell of the bus and replacing it with clean wind and wet asphalt. He pulled the collar of his weathered jacket higher against the cold and slipped both hands into his pockets. Behind him, distant sirens slowly grew louder. Blue and red lights flickered against rain-soaked buildings several blocks away. He never turned around. For too many years, his life had been spent looking over his shoulder. Tonight, he had no desire to revisit old habits. He was simply an aging veteran walking home through another rainy night. "Come on, buddy," he said quietly, tightening his gentle grip on Duke's leash. "Let's get home." Duke glanced up at him before falling into his familiar position beside his left leg. His paws splashed softly through shallow puddles. Rain soaked the dog's sable coat, while washing across Tristan's faded canvas jacket. Neither seemed to mind. Together they disappeared into the quiet streets, leaving behind flashing hazard lights, frightened passengers, and approaching sirens. They asked for nothing. No applause, no recognition, only the chance to continue walking toward the small apartment, waiting at the end of the night. Some people spend their lives chasing conflict. Others spend their lives trying to escape it. Tristan had learned long ago that real strength wasn't measured by how quickly someone could fight. It was measured by how hard they worked to avoid one. Yet sometimes, despite every effort, the world refused to leave peaceful people alone. The rain continued falling as man and dog vanished into the darkness, two old partners carrying invisible scars, hoping tomorrow would finally be quieter than yesterday. If this story kept you hooked from beginning to end, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more cinematic, character-driven stories every week. What would you have done if you had been on that bus? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every one of them. And if you enjoyed the bond between Tristan and Duke, send this story to someone who understands the loyalty between a veteran and a faithful K9 companion. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.